She had been flustered, unprepared, but he had smiled and invited her along. That simple gesture had been enough to break her down. No one had shown her kindness since the loss of her grandfather, the man who had raised her, the only one who had truly seen her. That day had changed everything. She had skipped class, spent the afternoon with him, and shared things she had never told anyone else. He had listened without judgment, offering reassurance in a way she had desperately needed. And when he suggested that the house she had inherited was meant for her, that it wasn't a burden but a gift, she had begun to believe it. He had been her anchor in a world that had once felt too big, too cold. But now, as she sat in this unfamiliar parking lot, surrounded by uncertainty, those memories felt distant, like another life entirely. Her mother, who had been drinking all day, corners her in the pantry and delivers a cutting remark about her upcoming marriage, suggesting that her fiancé is the one who should be congratulated for what he stands to gain. The woman tries not to take it personally, knowing her mother has been hostile to everyone that day. During dinner, the household remains on edge, and the tension reaches its peak when her father, who now spends most of his time in another city, abruptly stands up right after dessert, announcing he has an early meeting the next morning. He says goodbye to everyone except his wife. This provokes an explosive reaction from her mother, who shouts a vulgar accusation, exposing a bitter truth in front of the entire family. It is only years later that the woman learns her mother had just discovered a serious illness but chose to keep it secret. Even as the disease spread, she never revealed her condition to the rest of the family. Later, as the woman and her fiancé drive back to their home, they stop at a gas station. She notices her father's car parked nearby, its lights off, with him sitting inside, motionless. Her fiancé, noticing her anxious gaze, expresses a desire to speak with him. His earnestness surprises her, making her realize how little she truly knows about him. When she discourages the idea, he seems disappointed, revealing that he had expected her father to offer him a job now that they were engaged. However, she dismisses the thought, pointing out that the family business is not something he would want to be involved in. She suggests a different career path instead, but he reacts with embarrassment, brushing off the conversation. Their ride home continues in silence, and when he drops her off, he gives her an impersonal peck on the cheek before leaving. Days pass without a word from him, and she begins to worry. She wonders what went wrong. Had he truly believed her mother's cruel remark? Then, 8 days after Thanksgiving, she receives a note saying he is coming to the city and wants to meet. When she finds him at the train station, he is standing near a flower stand, holding a single pink rose. He announces that he has secured a job at a financial firm and is moving closer to her. The nervousness she had seen in him before is gone, replaced by quiet confidence. Relieved, she chooses not to bring up his sudden silence or question what it had meant. Now, as she steps out of her car, she is alone with her thoughts, holding a cup of coffee. The surroundings are far from peaceful. Garbage litters the ground, and distant shouting fills the air. She had intended to take a reflective stroll, but the environment does not lend itself to such thoughts. Then, her attention is caught by a small memorial under a tree, a photo, flowers, and a candle. She recognizes the face in the picture immediately. It is the same troubled young man whose image she had seen at a recent meeting. Her mind flashes back to an earlier moment when she had noticed this boy standing on a street corner, dressed in dramatic makeup and green-dyed hair. The sight of him had startled her so much that she nearly crashed her car. She later saw him again at a school event, where he had been marching with a team, still standing out with his unusual appearance. While others laughed at him, another boy she knew, someone important to her, had remained indifferent, neither mocking nor defending him. Now, standing before the memorial, she imagines the pain his father must feel. She wonders if, after his son's passing, he has come to see him differently, remembering only the good and discarding the past conflicts. Perhaps he has found old messages or notes left behind, clues to an unspoken struggle. At that moment, the apartment door opens, and a man in a worn-out jacket steps outside. She recognizes him instantly, though she has never met him before. It is the boy's father. His tired posture and slow steps tell her everything. She wrestles with the urge to hide but also wants to see him up close. She tries to imagine his life, taking his son out in public, enduring the stares and whispers. She understands that feeling. She has faced her own struggles with acceptance, with expectations, with disappointment. As she watches, she knows that this man has been left to piece together what remains, searching for answers that may never come. She is in a courtyard where the woman notices a man sitting with a cigarette, though he isn't smoking it. His hands tremble as he stares at the ground, and she wonders if he knows who she is. If he does, he might blame her son for what happened. She isn't sure if she believes the accusations herself, but the thought lingers. When their eyes meet, he greets her with a simple afternoon. She barely manages a silent hello in return. Nearby, a memorial photo flutters in the wind, and the remnants of a candle and scattered wildflowers lay on the ground. She realizes this is her moment to say something, to understand what she is up against. However, before she can, the man turns away, his cigarette shaking between his fingers. His shoulders heave, and a quiet, painful sound escapes him. She watches as grief overtakes him, confirming what she already knew. He is struggling under the weight of his sorrow. Her fingers dig into her thighs as she stands up, hesitant but knowing she can't ignore his pain. She walks over and hands him a packet of tissues, her heart pounding. He stares at the packet, unsure of what to do, until she gently explains that they are scented, as if that detail might somehow make sense of everything. Slowly, he takes one and wipes his face, then manages a faint, grateful smile. He apologizes for his display of emotion, but she assures him it's okay. However, as people move around them, speaking different languages and playing games, she suddenly feels exposed. Without another word, she steps back and walks away, barely aware of her own movements. By the time she reaches her car, she realizes she left her coffee on the roof, but it's too late to turn back now. The man is at work, lost in the monotony of his job. His day is filled with meetings, discussions about word choices, and the dull routine of corporate life. To clear his mind, he steps outside for a moment, watching the diverse crowd pass by. As he waits for a group to arrive for a meeting, he reflects on an old camping trip. His father had excitedly planned a weekend in the woods, but when the time came to assemble the tent, he struggled with the instructions. His younger brother, however, figured it out easily, leaving him feeling inadequate. To avoid the trip, he faked an illness, and his mother quickly covered for him, understanding his silent plea. That moment cemented his belief that his father would always favor his brother. As he sits on the bench, his thoughts drift to the woman he fell in love with. She was different from the women before her, bold, carefree, and effortlessly charming. When he introduced her to his family, his father, for the first time, acknowledged one of his relationships with approval. That small nod had meant everything, and he realized then that he wanted to hold on to her. They had traveled together, shared carefree moments, and created memories that felt distant yet perfect. Now, as he watches people move around him, he notices a cleaning woman speaking loudly into her phone. She seems strong and unbothered by the world around her. He can't help but think that if someone like her had found his father in those final moments, things might have turned out differently.